Hey there. So, I see, I hear, and I've been noticing a lot of priests, Christian preachers, evangelist types and all that, preaching out of Leviticus, saying that gay people need to be put to death. And they use Leviticus as their justification for it, for that attitude. So let's take a good look at Leviticus, shall we? First off, Leviticus is called the third book of Moses. I mean, basically, it's the third book of Moses called Leviticus. Now, see where it is? Here, it's in... Oh, crap. It's in this here. It's kind of hard for me to do backwards instead of a mirror. But see, this is part of the Bible. And it is Leviticus here, which is the third book of Moses. And basically what it is it's the Torah. This is Jewish law. See? Here's a better copy. This is Leviticus right here. See there? Third book of Moses. And look what it's part of. Crap. Can't get this light right. Okay, look here. See, it's part of the 5 books of Moses. Now that tells you something significant right there. First off, this is Jewish law. This is the Torah. It's basically the first books of the Old Testament. So let's go ahead and let's read a little bit out of this here. And this is Leviticus. That's the first part of it. It says, "And the Lord called unto Moses, and spoke unto him out of a tabernacle of the congregation, saying," okay, "and spake unto him out of the tabernacle of the congregation, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, If any man of you bring an offering unto the Lord, ye shall bring your offering of the cattle, even of the herd, and of the flock. If his offering be a burnt sacrifice of the herd, let him offer a male without blemish." And then it goes on and on and on and talks about how to sacrifice a cow. To God, basically. Okay, so we get around... What is this here? Get around chapter 19. Yeah, I think it's chapter 19. I don't know the verse, though, because it's not calling it out here. But it says... Basically, it's once again, it's a bunch of Jewish law. And it says... Thou shalt not... Well, okay, so it goes on. The Quran does a lot of this stuff, too. It does a lot of this bossy... set your ass on fire just for, looking at things wrong kind of stuff, It's a lot of punishment. And that's the same as what you got in the Old Testament. It's just a bunch of more punishment. It says here, "Moreover, thou shalt not lie carnally with thy daughter's wife, to defile with her, and thou shalt not lie with any of thy seed, pass through the fire to Moloch." Now what Moloch is it's like, what this means is thy seed pass through the fire. I don't really understand what the fire part is. But it's basically, do not sacrifice your children to this god thing, Moloch, I think, is whatever this is. "Neither shalt thou profane the name of the God. I am the Lord. Thou shalt not lie with mankind as with womankind. It is abomination. Neither shalt thou lie with any beast to defile thyself." And it goes on like that through chapter 19. And then the odd thing is then in chapter 20, we have almost the same exact verse. It says, "And if a man lie with his daughter-in-law, both of them..." Okay, what does it say here? "And the man that..." excuse me. "And the man that committeth adultery with another man's wife, even he that committeth adultery with his neighbor's wife, the adulterer and the adulteress shall surely be put to death. And the man that lieth with his father's wife hath uncovered his father's nakedness." Yeah, that's a big deal, I guess, for the Jews. Is don't be naked. "Both of them shall surely be put to death. their blood shall be upon them. And if the man lie with his daughter-in-law, both of them shall surely be put to death. They have wrought confusion. Their blood shall be upon them. If a man also lie with mankind, as he lie with womankind, both of them have committed an abomination. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them. And if a man take a wife with their mother, it is wickedness. They shall be burnt with the fire. Both he and they, there shall be no wickedness among you. And if a man lie with the beast, he shall surely be put to death, and ye shall slay the beast. Yeah. Don't want any of them beasts getting wise, I guess. And if a woman approach unto any beast, and lie down thereto, thou shalt kill the woman and the beast. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them. Okay. The reason why the Christians, why some evangelist Christians, hard for me to say, I think God makes it that way on purpose. The reason why some evangelist Christians are preaching so heavily out of Leviticus in that way, to try to say, look, the Bible says that gay people are to be put to death, that LGBT should be ended. And what we have at the front of all that, in my opinion, it seems, are people like Mike Pence. And that's your true wolf in sheep's clothing. I mean, the guy would just love to bring upon this earth a Holocaust and basically create prison camps, extermination camps, and put all the gay people in it, all that, in the entirety of the LGBT community. They're already doing it in Chechnya, and you know who his master is, apparently. I mean, they seem to be in love with the Russians now. So, is this from God? No, it's not. This is the Jewish Torah. This is Jewish law, written by mankind. This is not a divine expression from God. Look, clearly Moses was insane, and all this is attributed to Moses. It is not attributed to God. But I know for a fact that Moses was insane. And so the author of this obviously is straight. And because it's the one life lived in one way only part of religion as governance. That's the more and more of that. Now, the truth of all things being what they really are, if it's part of the Torah, it needs to remain with the Torah. It doesn't need to be adopted by the Christians. Because you see, for some damn reason, this here, once again, it's hard for me to operate reverse. This here, this Holy Bible, this has got both the Old Testament and the New Testament in it. And the Old Testament is mostly the 5 books of Moses, the Torah. And the New Testament, on the other hand, that's what the Christians should be focusing on. But instead, they're going back to this God in governance bit, this idea of Jewish law, and they're trying to force it upon us because from what I can figure, they truly do want to bring upon this earth another Holocaust. That seems to be how they fancy it. So I suppose that's how fascism is going to rear its ugly head in the Republican Party in this century. Yeah, with gay people in their prison camps and their extermination camps. Because it seems to be that's what they want to do. I mean, the priests are already talking about it. The priests, their ministers, or whatever you call them, damn yahoos that think they know everything and yet are lost in the darkness of pagan ignorance, leading their congregations into the worst aspects of humanity. Ready to bring upon this earth another Holocaust? I mean, it's already started in Chechnya. They have prison camps, concentration camps for LGBT people, for nothing other than being LGBT. And Pence is in love with that idea. Southern Poverty Law Center called he had a meeting as of the vice president with a hate group. just like Trump does. Trump meets with a hate group all the time. And the Southern Poverty Law Center has identified those groups as a hate group. And what the Southern Poverty Law Center is it's a civil rights organization set up to protect people like me from extermination camps. And that's ultimately, they're not going to stop until they get that. At least that's what they would love to have. Because let's face it, God doesn't hate us, they hate us. Them, the evangelical Christians who preach out of Leviticus. They're the ones that hate us, not God. God clearly says that the Old Testament needs to be left in the past. That's why Christianity cannot move forward, is because it has the Old Testament anchored to the New Testament. So therefore, the story of Christ is now in jeopardy of being lost to humanity, because it will not be carried forward into the new age of logic and reason, as prescribed by God. He would rather the story of Christ be lost to humanity, rather than humanity not progress. See, the one thing about all these things is that they prescribe a dogma of God in perfection. And they are going to then, through religion as governance, govern us all to be perfect. With them in charge of that governance, of course, because this is ends up being nothing more than another method of wealth consolidation, because that's all that governance is. It's another tool by which a few are made astronomically wealthy at the impoverishment of the many. This is not a divine thing. Nope. This is a man thing. This is a human thing. These laws were written by man. They were not written by God. I mean, Moses was completely nuts by the time he come back off that mountain. And so he couldn't have written much of this and made any kind of sense. Which I suppose is why it doesn't make any sense. But in any case, these things are from the age of magic and mysticism. That's why they call sacrifices. Now, do you see the Christians sacrificing cattle in church? No, you don't. So I like how they do this pick and choose kind of stuff. They'll preach out of Leviticus like it's a real thing, like God never died a death on the cross to remove sin from the human experience, where that had some kind of validation in it. But since Christ came, since God, in the identity of Christ, died a death on the cross to remove sin from the human experience, this here, 5 books of Moses. Matter of fact, it looks better this way. 5 books of Moses. It's just a quaint story to be left in the past. Because even the New Testament's going to get a rewrite. Because you see, if there was no God, or if God was not Christ, basically, if Christ was not God on earth, then it wouldn't matter if the story of Christ was lost to humanity for all time. I mean, as it should be, if this is what it's going to bring to the world. But unfortunately for the Christians, Christ was God on earth. And the story of Christ shall change and move forward into the new age. And it will not preach God as a state of perfection. And it will not preach sin. And when we will abandon the Old Testament. And then we're going to go through a major rewrite of the New. Either that, and there's no either that, actually. This is the will of God upon humanity, and this will happen. It may take 300 years, but nonetheless, that's what's going to happen. So go ahead. Preach your Leviticus, and just see how far it gets you. So with that, see you next time.